and then turn it over to Brianne Fisher with Transportation and Sustainability.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Looks like we've got a good amount of folks online. So maybe some of you guys were able to join the Saturday, March 22nd on-site public meeting that we had. If not, I'm glad we provided this opportunity for you all to just hear about this project. We're just getting started. And so we know that this is a heavily used path and wanted to make sure to give the public an opportunity to get their voices heard and understand the scope of the project so that you all can help shape what this can look like going forward. So as Shauna mentioned, I'm Brianne Fisher. I'm leading this project with a handful of other really great, smart staff and consultant team, and excited to give this overview today. So what are we discussing today? We'll give a little bit of background just on this project and really some data and context on the character of Indian Bend Wash. This is where your input is really important. I have some regulatory, boring stuff to share, but really want to know, as users of this pathway, of users of city facilities and sites or neighboring areas, want to know your thoughts on the character of this area and what your vision is going forward. Again, we'll review the project scope and timeline. This is not a master planning effort. We don't have millions and millions of dollars to make this into a dreamland. So I do think that this is an opportunity to get to future phases of this area and make it really a really great asset for the whole community. And then we'll leave some time for some questions and answers as well. So as I'm sure you know, there is an existing pathway that goes from McKellips on the north side. Indian Bend Wash multi-use path then goes down to Tempe Town Lake. It connects down to Tempe Town Lake. The area between Curry and Tempe Town Lake has had some recent improvements, and so we're really focusing this project on the area between Curry and McKellips. You know, the multi-use path system in Tempe is funded by the Transit Fund. This is a 1997 residents voted to tax themselves in Tempe for these types of services, such as Orbit and bus stops. It also funds these paths that we all love and enjoy. So the transit team and manager has set aside some funding for a multi-use path refresh, and Indian Bend Wash is up and is due. And so we're taking that funding and we're thinking about what can we really do in this area and how can we really improve the experience of the users based off of some of the resident concerns and comments we've heard over the years. Some of those include, you know, this path does get high speeds and high traffic. There's a little bit of connectivity, access confusion and issues. There's a lot of concrete paths that kind of lead to nowhere that can get confusing. There's some safety and lighting concerns, and then just general kind of aesthetic issues. Those are some of the things that we've heard. And again, transportation sustainability as one department is coming together and really thinking about how we can use this transit fund refresh funding to make this path something really great. So just a little bit more on the character of this area. You've got in the neighboring area to the east, some industrial. To the west, you've got some residential and commercial. You've got obviously Scottsdale directly to the north. I'm sure if anybody has used this trail on pedestrian or bicyclist, you're connecting to the Greenbelt on the north, and then connecting right into downtown and Tempe Town Lake to the south. So it's a really cool area that can have really good connectivity, and we're interested in exploring how we can make this an even cooler connection. I went over a little bit of this, but existing pathway, it's about 3/4 of a mile between Curry and McKellips where we're focusing this work on. And we've made, as I mentioned, some improvements recently to the area south of Curry, some improvements to the underpass. And I think one of the greatest assets that this area has is this open space. A lot of our residents in the neighboring area has mentioned the wildlife that they see because of the wash and that channel. It is 72 acres of open space, with 20 acres of that being leased space to Sing Soils LLC. If any of you have been around for a while, you know that up until 2022, Sing Soils has managed a farmer's market and a cafe, some special events, yoga in the park. We are working with Sing Soils to get activation back again. This is definitely a consideration as part of this project. Would love to be able to connect folks to that activated site on the east side. So that is definitely a part of our thought process and the work going into this project as well. Again, this used to be a golf course, so that's why you see some of these pathways, concrete pathways, kind of leading to nowhere. It doesn't make sense currently, but that's why that infrastructure is there. And then, as I mentioned, a lot of sighted urban wildlife. It's one of the rare areas in the middle of the city where you can see some pretty beautiful, wonderful wildlife. And so that's kind of, we're taking all of these different characteristics into consideration. And a little bit more on the character of Indian Bend Wash area as it relates to water regulations. So in the Sonoran Southwest, usually water is not a huge topic, but we're in this area focusing specifically on water quantity and water quality. It's quite interesting that this area has consideration for both. Technically, the land, the 72 acres I mentioned before, is owned by Maricopa County Flood Control District. They are the owners of the property. They have an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, with the city of Tempe for operations and maintenance. And then, as I mentioned, we then have the 20 acres leased to Sing Soils LLC. So that's kind of the land ownership agreements. And the county flood control districts, their responsibility is really around this water quantity perspective. So they have a bunch of water flowing from down upstream from Scottsdale and from surface area in the surrounding area. So when it rains, we're getting water from up north and we're getting water from the surrounding area, all coming into this channeled area. It's a floodplain. And really what Maricopa County Flood Control District is making sure they are responsible for is, and I put this little diagram because diagrams help me, if you have 10 liters of water in a jar and then you throw a rock in there, that water level goes up. So very similar to a floodplain and how that's being regulated. If we are to put structures, trees, anything on this floodplain, the county needs to understand how the flow is impacted by those structures or by that activity downstream. And so we are working very closely with the County Flood Control District. There is a permitting process that we have included in this scope to make sure any activity or any access or open space that we make available for this path improvements, we are considering what the downflow impact is. And again, working with County Flood Control District on that. Wanting to communicate that to you all because it's an important aspect of, and might have some limitations or some opportunities around what's possible in this area. The other thing that we need to consider is water quality. So again, all of this water coming from up north and from surface areas, all of this water comes down into Indian Bend Wash. And then where does it go? It goes into Tempe Town Lake / the Salt River. And so the Salt River is a US protected waterway, which is regulated by Federal Clean Water Act. So basically, the city of Tempe, our water quality division, is responsible for monitoring and ensuring we are meeting regulations around the water quality and pollutants going into these protected waterways. And because Indian Bend Wash floodplain and channel flows so much water down into the Salt and into Tempe Town Lake, we need to be wary and very aware and manage and mitigate how much pollutants are getting into that waterway. And as I'm sure you can infer from the slides, and maybe if you think about all of the green and park space surrounding Indian Bend Wash, and again, up north from Scottsdale's Greenbelt, the number one pollutant coming from Indian Bend Wash is E. coli from pet waste. So just be wary of that as you are using these spaces yourself. It's something we monitor for. And again, we will be thinking about how can we use these regulatory aspects around water for Indian Bend Wash, the water quality and the water quantity, and use that as an opportunity. And that's where I want to explain a little bit about Tempe's approach. Some of you may have heard of our Rain to Roots program in the sustainability division. Rain to Roots is really thinking about how we are using rainwater as an opportunity. We call this green stormwater infrastructure. So when it rains, the surface flow from the streets can be captured. And if we design appropriately, it can be captured to go into landscaping area and instead produce a good tree canopy, lower our potable water use because we're swapping that out with the free rainfall resource that we have. It can mitigate flooding and clean up waterways. So we are wanting to look at this green stormwater infrastructure approach to Indian Bend Wash because of the water quality and quantity regulations, and knowing that green stormwater infrastructure can benefit and manage and mitigate both of those things. So we think it could be a really, really cool opportunity. So now to the nuts and bolts of this project. We've asked our consultants to really focus on 4 main things with the scope, and that's the connectivity and access. That's green stormwater infrastructure approach and restoring the natural Sonoran environment. That's lighting and safety, and that's alternative routes, really thinking about maybe taking that fence down and getting access to more of that floodplain area and restoring the natural environment. And would we keep the same route that we currently have on that pathway, or would it meander? So kind of taking an approach of looking at that for a more interesting potential ride or walk for the users. As for the timeline, we have the public survey currently open, so I encourage everybody to go and take that if you have not yet. That will close on April 7th. We'll have our next public meeting in August of this year. We'll have some conceptual designs at that point. So instead of a general overview like you're seeing right now, there will be a little bit more designs and examples of the approach that you all can react to. And then we'll have 100% designs by the end of this year and be working on the permitting portion of things a year from now. And then we'll move into the construction phase. So again, today is really just about a large overview of what we have planned. And we really want you all to take the survey, provide that input, follow along the process. I offered this to folks in the in-person meeting on the 22nd, but if anybody lives in the surrounding area or is a user of this and wants me to come and talk to their neighborhood association or HOA, I'm happy to do, or bike club or any club, I'm happy to give this presentation and talk through what we have in store, the scope, and the regulation portion of things to anybody in the next couple of months before we really get this project started. And with that, I think we can take questions.
Okay, great. So if you have questions, I see a hand, so we'll go to you in a minute here, Karen, but you can put them in the chat or raise your hand, which is under the React. There's like a heart at the bottom, and you can see the raise hand under there. Karen, if you want to come off mute and ask your question.
Yes. Brianne, I won't ask any hard questions. I'm asking for a resident, as a resident today, not a City of Phoenix. So thank you for that. I think it's great. I love the north-south connectivity. I did work on the path, the South Bank path that traversed Sky Harbor that matched up and hooked up to Tempe. Brianne, would you mind going back to like slide 2 that shows the whole big overview of the study area, please? Yeah, that one will work. So right now, looking at existing conditions, you have a concrete path and it is on the west side of the study area on top of kind of the bank. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct.
Okay. And then where we see brown, it's undeveloped, it's kind of shrubby, and then somebody at Tempe has looked at the center channel as kind of this greenway water convergence, but there's no low flow channel in there, correct? Look, we have a low flow between Tempe and the Sky Harbor that conveys nuisance flows, but there's no channel here.
Yes, my understanding is that middle area is the channel.
Okay, and so you're asking residents to provide impact from the red lines, the entire red study area.
That's right. Again, the existing pathway is on the west side, and we have a leaseholder and some activation in a commercial site on the east side. Currently, there is no ability to bike through the area to get to that commercial site. So I think, and we've heard a lot of positive comments on open space, wildlife. So the study area is as wide as it is because if we are thinking about green stormwater infrastructure and thinking about using the water quantity as a benefit, then we need to understand how the elevations impact where that water is going to go and where the opportunities are for a more lush green space.
Right.
And where the pathway possibly could meander and cross over for access on that east side.
So would it be helpful if you had, and maybe this is too far down the road, to have a map that shows existing conditions? Did any of your maps show where the path was? And I'm sorry if I missed it.
I don't think so, Karen.
Okay. Because sometimes it's good to show, here's existing conditions, here's the path. Is it concrete? Is it asphalt? Is it lighted? And there's only path on one side of the study area, correct? There's no east-west connectivity during this swath of land, and there's nowhere that you can bike on the east side. Is that correct?
That's correct. This map, this picture probably shows the best opportunity. And if I was to highlight the existing path, which would probably be beneficial, it is this concrete, straight line that then dips down and connects to Scottsdale. So we could, I love your recommendation for clarity. We can probably highlight that pretty direct straight path. And then help explain that all of these other path pieces are
remnants.
I call, pathways to nowhere.
Yeah. And then just to be clear, not the best opportunity is to put playground equipment or structures in the path because of the floodway and the floodplain. If that's a correct statement, that might be something to try to steer people away from. If it's just to put a meandering path and some landscape and some green infrastructure, if those are really the best use, that might be good to highlight so that people don't think, oh, we can just put a bunch of picnic tables and gym equipment, if in fact that's the case. And number two, is that a pond? It's been a long time since I've been.
It is.
On
It
my
is
bike, is that a
pond.
pond area? So that could be a highlight of this area, amenity, if you were to meander the path.
Yeah, so going back, so yes, that is a pond. And going back to your first statement, I don't think in this project we have the scope to build structures or build a pickleball court or build X, Y, Z. However, it is possible as long as we have the evidence, the water flow calculations,
Sure,
and the
sure.
permitting process. So I don't think that we will do that in this project just based off of scope and budget. However, I am somewhat interested in hearing from the residents and the users of what they want to see on this site. If we can't get it done with this project and this funding, can we still learn and understand what the vision and desire is going forward, and how can we use this project to incrementally get to larger improvements down the road?
Sure, that's certainly a great strategy. I just am trying to set up expectations for what you can and what you can't do. I mean, money, you can always throw money at it, but if it's really supposed to be green open space, green infrastructure, not courts, not playground equipment, A, you don't have money, or B, they might not even be potential uses to go in this area based on its floodplain, floodway designation. So anyway, I think it's great. I love it. Just one other thing that might be a little off topic, but do you know when funding might be available for the pedestrian bike crossing over the lake in this area?
So we, very late last year, we were noticed that we had gotten that grant funding to complete the design and build of that. However, due to the administration change, that's uncertain at this point.
Okay.
Eric Iverson can comment more on that.
Because basically the next segment south of this is really close to going over the lake on that segment, right? So good connection.
Totally.
Okay. Thank you for that, Brian.
Okay. Brian, I know you answered Deborah in the chat, but I'm going to read it aloud because we're recording. So there was a question asking if we anticipate changing the hike bike path from current straight line to more of a meandering path. And Brianne had answered yes, that we are exploring that. And then she did also just have a follow-up question. I believe there is also a path on the east side of the area, not just this west side, but it goes through the Sing Meadows area. So I think that's referencing the lease part.
Yeah, so there is a path that if you were to go to Sing Meadows, you could take it north and take it up to McKellips. However, you cannot get from can you get from McKellips to the underpass? Or do you have to get to if you're at the south side of McKellips, I think you might just have to cross over, or go around to the west side and then go down the underpass. I think that's what you have to do. So yes, there is a pathway on that side. It's not in great condition. And it's a little tricky then to get to the underpass if you want to cross over to the north side.
Yeah, and if I could, hi all, this is Eric Iverson, Transportation and Sustainability Director. If I could just jump in real quick on that. Deborah, I think it was Deborah that made the comment, and Brian's correct. There is that pathway, and Deborah, you're correct too, that exists on that east side. It's sort of a remnant piece from when the golf course existed. And so while it is there, it is not part of what we at the city officially indicate as a pathway that has, that is built to the conditions or has the existing conditions of lighting and good paving and ADA access. So because of that condition, we don't put it in our bike map. We don't identify it right now as a public facility. It does exist. It's something that we're looking at as part of this project, but really that on that west side where the pathway hugs the upper levee of the channel, that is where our transportation facility is, and that is a facility that that people use today to kind of get north and south through there. But good noting there. And then I did want to follow up on Karen's question about the 25 million that was referenced in the previous presidential administration through a federal grant that was awarded to the city. That is, as Brianne indicated, is frozen right now with the current presidential administration. And we're working through a process to understand if that funding is in fact going to be permanently frozen or if it would be available for that grant funding to have that bridge over Town Lake, connecting it roughly the Dorsey Road alignment and really indirectly connecting to the Indian Bend Wash.
Are there other questions? You can put them in the chat, or if you can't find your raise hand function, feel free to come off mute and ask. Karen, did you have another one?
Yeah, I have another one. Sorry, Brianne. So Scottsdale has the green belt, right? Is this portion or study area not considered green belt? Or is it? No, it's not.
This is not considered greenbelt. As you can see, Maricopa County Flood Control District, this is still within the flood plain for them. So the county looks at the areas in a similar fashion, but our border starts at McKellips. So anything south of McKellips is the city of Tempe.
Okay, so in theory, if we improved it and got the green in there, it could be the southern portion of a green belt.
Certainly.
But right now we're not kind of at that stature. So great. Well, it certainly proves great connectivity. And also back to Deborah's question too. Do you know, Brianne, and again, if you don't, but north and south of this path, of this study area, is there connectivity on the east side and the west side? You know how you're driving down a road and it's 3-lane and it pairs down to 2, then it's back up to 3. So right now connectivity is on the west side, but just north and south of this study area, is there connectivity on both sides of the path, both sides of the study area? Does that make sense?
I don't know if I understand your question.
So right now we only have connectivity, a path on the west side of the study area.
Yep.
North of it, when you hit Scottsdale, are bike riders, walkers, pedestrians able to access both sides of the study?
As soon as you cross over the underpass, you can choose to go west or
East access?
And then, because that pond and that park is pretty heavily used. There's some armadas on the east side. And then I think you're pretty much directed on one side for a little bit, but
gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Just curious in that, sometimes as riders and walkers, you have to keep making that, now I've got to get to the east side. Now I've got to get to the west side. Not the biggest deal in the world, but from a consistency, connectivity, it could pose a challenge, but obviously people have been doing it.
What's nice is that under the underpass or at the underpass, which is a pretty wide underpass, you have the availability to choose. So I think it is a pretty nice wide optional underpass, right?
Yeah, and that might be good to know or good to show for those folks that aren't familiar, just kind of the existing conditions, kind of a map. But anyway, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So not questions, but comments in the chat are just related to what has already been discussed, but just talks about the path under McKellips that you can go on both sides. And as Brian mentioned, that is City of Scottsdale. And then a note that South of Curry is only on the west side, and that's what connects to the Town Lake Path. Are there other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any, Brianna. I don't know if you want to go back to next steps just to remind everyone and wrap us up.
Certainly. So again, thanks for all of the interest and questions. Please complete the public survey by April 7th. If you want to follow this project, then please expect some next steps or another opportunity to engage with the design in August. You'll hear from the City of Tempe. I'm happy to follow up with you if you want to talk through things, go bike ride, go walk. And then a year from now, we should be in a good place around permitting. So having final designs and working on the permitting process, and then we can give another update on what the construction schedule looks like, again, a year from now.
And then
So,
Brianne, sorry, we had two
Yeah.
more questions come
Oh,
in right
sure,
as
sure, sure.
right as we were
Naturally.
wrapping up. So the one question is asking if the issue has been addressed with the unsheltered.
Yeah, so we definitely know that if we were to make the study area accessible, that thinking about the unhoused and encampments would be a huge consideration. As you might know, we do have the City of Tempe Council has invested heavily in additional resources, both in the homeless outreach team as well as park rangers. We have that leased space. So with all of those things, I would be hopeful that we have eyes and ears around the site. Additionally, we know that activation is one of the best deterrents for the unhoused and encampments. So making sure the Sing Meadows, that leased space, is activated. And I do believe that creating a meandering path and having that with lighting and users would help also deter the homeless concerns. So it's been a consideration, and it will continue to be a consideration. And if that's something that is of concern for residents, something we want to hear.
And then the other question is asking if the study is looking at the public access or easements needed in the full wash to access Weber to the east, etc.
Access Weber to the east. I don't think there's going to be a need for any easements. Certainly, we're looking at access for the full wash. We've highlighted Weber as a connective point to get from east to west. So that's been on our radar. I don't know, Susan, if that answered your question or not.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button because I'm not at my desktop. It does. I just didn't know if there's already agreements with flood control district or
Yeah.
where something
project-
might limit that.
Yeah, we don't necessarily want to. Yeah, we are definitely looking at access. If we are to drop the fences, allowing users to access this space, we are working hand in hand with the County Flood Control District with everything that they need to make that possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, final call. All right, thank you again. We appreciate everyone joining us.
Thank you.